Paranormal Karen, she's so spooky. Paranormal Karen, funny too. Paranormal Karen, she's so spooky. Oh, and did I mention she's funny too? Yeah, cha-cha-cha.
Hey, everybody. Welcome to Paranormal Karen. It is June 23rd. I know you all know I tape ahead, so I'm doing the math in my mind right now. I'm taping this in May, still in quarantine, but here's what I want to tell you today. If Sunshine was a man, it would be Eddie Connor, my guest today. Eddie, I don't even know how to intro Eddie. We can go by the name Soul. Eddie, you had it right on your front page, and I loved it, and it encompassed everything. You said soul, and now it won't come up. Wait a minute. Here it is. Here it comes. See, this is how smooth my podcast runs. Everyone knows. Eddie, welcome. It was right there. And I loved the phrase. You know what I mean? Soul
Intuitive.
Yay. But first I have to tell you, Eddie, I love that, cause I get a little grumpy. I'm getting a little spiritually grumpy, but all your posts on Facebook, I hope everyone follows you on your page or whatever, cause they're always upbeat and they always make me smile, and you're funny. And, I'm screwed. This is kind of the intro. Folks, you've seen them everywhere. CNN, Coast to Coast AM, all over TV, many shows. We'll talk about it. Eddie, how are you doing in these weird times of quarantine?
That's like the $1 million question, right?
Yes.
And these, we're going on almost 2 full months here, like lockdown.
Yes.
It's not the city of angels anymore. So I have had to learn firsthand to every day at this point, because I think I'm like you. I live alone, right? You live alone.
Yep.
And so I like being alone, but I've had to literally remember everything I've ever learned spiritually and practice it on a minute by minute basis.
Wow.
And so I don't get sucked into this side, that side, this is light, this is dark, this is right, this is wrong thing, which is part of how we probably got in this mess to start with.
Right.
Mm.
Whoops. I lost you there.
Oh,
there you are. Okay. It was funny. There was just a strange noise. Maybe it was the dark side correcting us. No. It's funny because I know this. I'm calling it spiritually crabby, and I can't tell you how, blessed, I will use that word, I have been in this time with tarot readings. In my tarot class, I finished it. I worked on it for like 2 years, finished it right before this. People, like, everything is great, but man, lessons in your face, right?
Completely in your face. And if I'm telling you, every trigger, and you and I know that triggers are master teachers for us.
Yeah.
And so when we get triggered with something, there's still some wounded place within us we need to heal. So, child, I'm walking around with Band-Aids wrapped up all of me like a mummy because I don't like the triggers.
I know. I have to tell you, I was meditating the other day, and this is funny because also all this at once, and I'm in a numerological year 1, so I'm starting out. I'm very excited about that. And I have a special that's out that finally I got a payment from it, and it was a nice big payment. And then I started to get really weird about money. Eddie, I've never had money. I've always been in debt. I got out of debt. I'm moving the other way. And all of a sudden I started to question everything. Was the special good enough? Was the class good enough? And I was like, oh, look at you. You got to fix that, or all this money is going to go away.
Yep. And money's an interesting thing, isn't it? Because it amplifies whatever you already are. So if you're a curmudgeon-y, greedy, self-centered person when you're broke, then when you get some money and you have money consistently, or even if you achieve fame and recognition or great wealth, it just amplifies your curmudgeon-y, greedy energy. But if you're like you were so kind, you described me as sunshine. And that's how I think of you, a very bright, shiny, like a star from the inside out.
Oh.
And so with you, your energy, your money energy is just going to be amplified by the light that you are, because you're so observous and you do it in such a humorous way. I love learning with enlightenment, and you're the queen of that.
Oh my God! Thank you. This is a love fest going on here, folks, and I appreciate that. It's so funny. I also try to get my dark side out there, because I think then it's not dark. Like you said, the light and the dark. Like I always try to lead. I do a card of the day thing, and I always try to lead with something I did that I like. I want to fix this or something like that. But that is a brilliant thing you said about money, because I'm being very conscious to tithe and to give gifts, or you know what I mean? The gifts or the birthday gifts I could never give, people are getting now, because I don't want to be that curmudgeon-y person that is scared of money.
Yes. Yeah. I love, and listen, 95% or more of the human population right now are in a frequency of deficit where money is concerned. The word money conjures up a contradiction anyway. I call them money butts. It's like you really want the money, but you don't know how you're going to get it. So most of the world right now is in the money but place. You rainbow sunshine unicorn person, you're like really conscientiously from your heart, mind, and your gut brain, you're playing with the energy of money. So you're not in a vibration of money but deficit. You're literally in a higher frequency of money, more, please, thank you.
Oh, nice. More, please, thank you. If Oliver had only said that the whole musical would have been done. It would have been different. Oh my God. I did on my meditation the other day, I got this like it was some big revelation. And then I texted it to my friends and they were like, okay, right. And what it was like when you go to manifest something, for example, say, I kind of feel like I'm really ready for a relationship or a husband, which I never really say that. And I said, so I sent that out to the universe, and then I noticed I had like fights with two of my neighbors, and I was like, you can't get along with anyone. You're looking for a husband? And then I thought the manifestation sent me back the trigger to go, that's what you got to fix. You fix that, and then we'll send him.
Don't you love that? Don't you love being aware and actually being aware? Because you can be aware and be what I call a shelf-help person.
Uh-huh.
Where every book on your shelf is self-help, but you read the book, you put the teaching back up on the shelf and never implemented it. You had the awareness, and now you're diving into the water to correct an old pattern.
Yes, I'm trying.
Well, it ain't easy and it ain't pretty.
That's for sure. That is for sure. Because do you find this, Eddie? And I don't feel like this is you, but I feel like the term spiritual people is misleading, because it leads to believe that people that never get mad, that never yell when their plane is late, which is me. But I feel like if you say spiritual people, a lot of them, I feel like we all get what is that? Where I lose my temper very quickly. Does that make sense?
It does make sense. I have a friend I've known for 25 years, and one of her biggest pet peeves is the term spiritual people, because of the exact thing you just said. There's a misconception about it literally within our community. Listen, I had to come out twice whenever I was growing up, one for being gay and then the second one for being psychic. And what I learned in the gay community, I'm still gay. What I learned in the gay community was there were yeah, we had a lot of people pushing against us outside, whether it was religious, conservatives, whatever it was, pushing against, and that's within your own family, right? Your own tribe. And then within the gay community, you're standing in the bars and the clubs and the get-togethers, and then over here's this little clique, this little clique, this little clique, this little clique, this little clique. And I was like, oh my God, not only are we minorities, we're minorities within minorities within minorities within minorities within minorities. We can't even get along within our own little, quote, clan. And spiritual people has turned into a clique within a clique within a clique within a clique within a clique. And it's almost the opposite of even the term spiritual. They got the people part right. But the spiritual part, it's like they left their soul outside in the rain, honey. Left my soul outside in the rain. It melted, honey, and it got the pop. But it's becoming kind of an ugly word.
Yes. Yeah. Or a confining word.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah. And which is weird because you were just describing how you started and I thought, oh, Karen, you should start the interview. We're 10 minutes in. You should start the interview and let people know. Eddie, how did you how did you discover your psychic abilities, or did you come from a family? It sounds like you didn't come from a family that sort of embraced this or had this in their lineage. How did you start out?
That's such an interesting question. I started out in the South in the 60s, and I'm a third generation psychic. And so I'm psychic, my mom's psychic, and her mom's psychic.
Great.
And her mom was super, super, super conservative. She was a mean Christian woman, honey. And then my mama, who got no hugs, kisses, and I love yous from her mean mama, she, had me when she got pregnant with me when she was 15 and had me when she was 16. So she came from that sort of heavy conservative background, but she was the opposite of my grandma. So the three of us are psychic. And as a child, I would have just crazy experiences. And the first one I ever remembered was when we were in our little kitchenette. We were in the projects, and my birth dad came charging in the door. So I'm with my mom, who is like 8 or 9 months pregnant, and my baby brother is sleeping on the sofa. We just came in. Mama got off work at the bowling alley and come and picked us up at the neighbors. And then my dad comes charging in and just really pummels my mom. And I was standing there trying to figure out what I could do to help. And this little girl pulled on my sleeve. Now, this is in the corner of a tiny kitchen.
And how old are you again?
I am like 4 years old.
Okay.
And then she pulls me back underneath the Formica table with the big metal legs.
Uh-huh.
And we're cuddled there together. We're holding each other. And all I could see is everything from the waist down. So my dad is kicking my mom. My mom's balled up and she's pregnant and she's covered her head and her stomach. And that goes on for what seems like an eternity. And he storms out the door after he takes her money. And I'm like, my mom is dead. And I turn to the little girl and she's gone. And I'm like, oh my God. And I've got tears in my eyes. And I'm like, I'm losing my mind. And then I'm like, gosh, please, God, please don't let her be dead. Don't let her be dead. And then light started coming through the wall and the cabinets at a diagonal right on my mom, like the sun had just come out or something. But it was coming through the wall. And I just sort of crawled out from under the table and sat beside of her, because in the South, child, you were to be seen and not heard.
Ugh.
So I'm sitting beside of my mom and I'm picking up the busted pieces of dinnerware and I'm putting it in a nice little neat pile, being quiet, hoping she'll wake up, and asking for help from my heart. And then the light comes through, and then I start seeing angels in the light. And the feeling that came from them was the very, very first authentic, pure frequency of kindness and peace and serenity that I've ever felt in my entire life up until that point. And I just knew that she was going to be okay. And the minute I knew that, the angels disappeared, then the light faded. And then my mom turned over, and she tried to pretend nothing had ever happened. She's like, "What are you doing sitting here on the floor, Edward?" And that was my first psychic experience that I remember.
So now, was the little one okay?
Yes, that was Terry. And Bobby was asleep on the sofa, and I was in the kitchen like a little gay son. Okay, helping Mama cook.
Oh my God. What a wow. Okay. So that was your first. Now, just a quick before we jump to another topic, do you feel you communicate with angels now? I feel like that's a whole, like, I know that when I read, I always think my higher self in the higher self of the other person. I hope there's angels around, but I don't know if I have that confidence. Do you feel angels now or communicate with them?
I really do. And I do. And I'm like you when I say the opening prayers, my guides, angels, teachers, loved ones, higher self, infinite intelligence, subconscious mind, thoughts and feeling frequencies of the highest, purest in order, etc. But yes, always the angels, always the guides, always their inner being, if you will.
Now, that was something I wanted to ask for our listeners. And so first of all, is it all a different vibration? Does it all sound or feel the same to you? And how do people, this is like 10 questions in one. And there's a motorcycle guy. How can we get rid of him? No, how does it, I have so many loud motorcycles outside my apartment. It's crazy. People always ask me how they can talk to their guides. And I always love hearing, what would you tell somebody that said that to you, Eddie?
First of all of the frequencies are very different, just like we're our human personalities. A lot of people think when you croak here on the planet, you go straight up to heaven. And it's not that way. You go to the next dimension up from where you are. And then you go from the next dimension up from that, and then up and up and up until you get up there, as it were. And so, like, you have a different frequency from a lot of other people. So do I. And your guides and angels also carry different personality types. Remember, Shirley MacLaine had a Irish pickpocket as one of her guides whenever Kevin Ryerson would trans-channel the guides with her. And he became the entity of that guide. And so they're all different. How do you communicate with them? You have to ask, and you want to always ask from a place of receptivity, like meditation, visualization, relaxation. Just sitting under the tree on a day like this with the sun coming through with your eyes closed and relaxed. Anything that keeps you in a relaxed receiving mode, and then ask them to introduce themselves. And I'm a big fan of pen and paper. Mm-hmm. And always have your pen and paper by your bed when you wake up in the morning, because those are visitations, usually during the night. And then anytime you start doing your practice, to this day, I do a minimum of a 1 hour guided meditation that I do on my own, or I listen to guided meditations on CD for an hour a day.
Yeah, just to keep yourself in that frequency.
Yes.
Wow. Okay. You know what else is weird now in this time where I'm going to sort of refer to it like that, where I feel like we're, for people know we're always talking about we're moving from Pisces to Aquarius and everything. I do feel like the veil is getting thinner, or things are more intense, or, even this being forced in to stay alone and look in the mirror kind of thing. Dreams are off the hook. And I usually don't remember my dreams. I'm having like 1,000 dreams, and then I look and I've been asleep 5 minutes. So here's my dream the other night, Eddie. Tell me this isn't so clear. So I had a nightmare, and there was everything. I was getting beaten up. I was chased. I was scared. There were bees for some reason, I think because I looked at mean hornets or murder hornets before I went to bed. And then right before I woke up, someone said, well, that's how you treat yourself. And
wow.
I know, right? And it was, but they're usually not that clear. But I was like, yeah, okay, I get it now. All right. So when Shirley MacLaine had the little Irish pickpocket, was that a person that passed away and transformed into a guide, or it sort of was a human guide? I'm not actually familiar with that story.
It is a person that lived on the earth plane at one time who transitioned to higher consciousness, who still liked the earth and would come in and help people who were asking for continued spiritual guidance as humans on the earth plane.
I love that. And you know what's weird? He was a pickpocket, but there's not a judgment against his soul, right?
Exactly. And did you ever read Annie Kagan's book, The Afterlife of Billy Fingers?
No. Is that him? Is Billy Fingers the guy?
Billy Fingers, completely different guy. Annie Kagan's brother's name was Billy. I think that was his nickname. And he went through a period where he was a pickpocket, but he also struggled his entire life with drugs and alcohol. And it got him in tremendous trouble. And he passed away because he ran out of a hospital emergency room into freeway traffic and went through somebody's windshield.
Ugh.
And he was so grateful and so happy. And so the whole book, the premise of it is his layers of evolution on the other side and how there is no judgment in non-physical. You can't judge a person's experience whenever they're living on the earth plane because they pick that with their soul group and their soul pod to go through the experiences they need to go through karmically or otherwise to get to the higher level of consciousness.
Got it. Which leads me to, and I'm going to come right back to this, the old standard, what about Hitler? Which I hang on a second, folks. I know. Hang on a second, folks. We'll be right back. Hey, everybody, it's me doing an ad for me. That's right. I keep forgetting to say this at the end, so I had to take out an ad on my own podcast. First of all, thanks for listening, and I love all your feedback. If you have a comment or a story or just want to say hi, email me at karenrontowski@gmail.com. Also, go to karenrontowski.com or paranormalkaren.com, and you can get my tarot class. That's right. It took me 2 years to put it together. It's 8 classes, about an hour each. You will be reading tarot by the end. While you're there, sign up for my email list. Everyone should do this. I only send out an email about every 2 to 3 months, and it's filled with typos and misspellings, so you know I haven't been kidnapped, and that's the best way to keep up on comedy dates and whatever is new. While you're there, you can book a 30 or 60-minute tarot reading, or you can get a gift certificate for somebody else. I got a little bit of merch left. If you want a Paranormal Karen Shungite sticker for your phone to make it safer, you can email me about that, or I now sell Paranormal Karen reusable straws. You take them with you wherever you go. Maybe you're doing cocaine with someone that doesn't look like they're clean. Boom, you got your own straw. karenrontowski.com. Okay, so I know people always use that. Like, I always use the example, especially with an atheist. I have a friend that's an atheist, and he'll always say, why do bad things happen to so-and-so? Or why do bad things happen to kids? And I always think, oh, well, you don't know. Maybe that soul wanted to learn about forgiveness. Like, we don't know. And the picture is so big that I don't know. Sometimes I even think maybe it's not even our business right now. But when people throw something really negative at you like that, like, what about Stalin or Hitler? What do you usually just tell them? Like, it was like, that's such a touchy, weird example.
It is, and it is very human nature, too, to go right to the biggest, ugliest, hairiest, nastiest thing. You know, not but one of the biggest awful things that's happened in human history. And, you know, here's what I've learned the hard way. For me, when I hear someone speaking, I don't combat them. I never was. I'm not confrontational anyway. I listen. I sort it out because I have a brain and a heart and a gut. And then I I take that information and then I do my own damn homework. And so Hitler was not by himself. He was with certain people in our own country that was fueling and financing that.
Right.
So it's like, so the answer to your question more directly is, here's what I know for sure. In 30 years of doing readings, when someone murders someone, the soul of the person they murdered follows them around on the earth plane until they die. And if you're a mass murderer, they all follow you. And if you're someone like him, then there's a lot of people following your ass.
Yes.
So that when you get over to the other side, guess what your first order of business is? You have to go through the mental, emotional, spiritual, psychic, all of it. Physical, you have to go through everything each individual soul experienced and how that experience affected everybody in their lives. You have to do that with every person. That's part of the evolutionary process. He still might be stuck just on the other side of the veil from the third dimension, still going through that process until he evolves. And, that's a fascinating story to me because I am a huge proponent for study the child from birth to 7 years old. From birth to 7 years old, we are literally in a third, fourth dimensional state, and we're hypnotized. I call it shipmatized mostly. We're shipmatized by our family's behavior. So we are literally learning how to behave when we grow older. So if you want to see what a kid's going to be like when they get to college, go to a first and second grade class and watch how they interact with the other kids and the teacher. And that's exactly how they're going to behave when they grow up, unless something triggers in them and they start to wake up and they look around like I did, and probably you did too. And I remember sitting around going, why is my mom killing herself to make minimum wage? Why is money even in the equation? Why is life not fair for people who are poor versus people who are rich? I started asking the questions. Now, I couldn't ask my mom and my damn daddy because the answer was because I said so.
Right.
But the question asking is the first thing that wakes up a kid to a higher level of understanding the world physically and non-physically, so that we don't turn into the negative aspects of our parents, our environments, and our communities. We become kind of leading edgers, and we study, and learn, so that we could come back and help people that grew up in those kinds of bumpy ways like we did.
Right. It's funny when you were saying when you run into someone combative, the first thing you do is listen. And I was going to go, you lost me there. Because I'm so terrible at that. I got to go back and listen to that again where you said, because I feel like I do get combative with people sometimes and it's not good. So that was a great lesson. Okay. So
let me just jump in real quick though. I shut down. If somebody's combative, because that's my dad, that's my birth dad, that's my stepdad, and sometimes it was my mom. My mom was a survivor. My dad was a sadist, and my stepdad was just, he did the best he could. That's where I'll leave it. So whenever I grew up and people started being combative and confrontational just for sport, I would shut down. But now I shut down, but I step back. I listen to what they're saying, and then when I have distance from them, then I assimilate it. I want to smack the shit out of somebody sometimes, don't get me wrong, with a frying pan, a cast iron frying pan from the south. It's still got fish grease in it, and it's hot.
So you've thought about it.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I grew up in a violent household.
Right.
And so, I mean, that's my go-to. That's my trigger. But my thing is peace, 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 peace. But there was none of that growing up. I had to find it.
Carolyn Miss says something very interesting. She says, if you're racist when you're 18, it's how you were brought up. If you're racist when you're 25, it's a choice. And that's interesting because you were saying how, if you see that at that age and that's the person that's going to be, that's what they'll be like when they're 20. But I think that it's very interesting that there seems to be that turning point where you decide I don't want to be this anymore. The other thing that you were saying, I see where my thing was always, why wouldn't you choose to be happy? Like, I did not come from a family that would encourage you to go be a comedian and read tarot cards. It was like, you get a job, you go to college, you get a job. And it's like, that's not, you know what I mean? When you have to get out from under that and just say to other people, because you do readings, a lot of times it's like, why wouldn't you do what would make you happy? What's stopping you? Like, that's an enormous problem in this country.
It is an enormous problem in the country. And I love our conversation about this because I didn't see anybody happy in my family.
Right.
I didn't grow up with it. My grandma, who had 13 kids, my mom and Aunt Shirley were right in the middle. And my grandma had her two favorite kids, and everybody knew it. And it wasn't my mama, it was my Aunt Shirley and my Uncle Lee. She loved those two in a way that when she was mean as a snake. But when Uncle Lee or Aunt Shirley would walk in, my brothers and I would be on the floor behind a wood stove, pushed up against the wall. And that's where we had to sit until Mama picked us up after she got off work from the textile mill. And she was just like an angry badger. And every single time my uncle came over, Uncle Lee or Aunt Shirley, she would light up like a Christmas tree. She would just light up. She was playful. She was giddy. She smiled. She was light. I would hear her in the kitchen laughing. And I was like, what the hell is going on?
Who is that?
Yes. And I remember, and that was a huge turning point for me in elementary school. I'm sitting back there and I was like, tears in my eyes. And I'm like, that's what I want with my mama. That's the kind of, I want my mom to look at me that way, because I already saw my mom that way. But my mom did not ever get that from her own mother. And I remember I wasn't old or smart enough to come up with I'm going to break the pattern. I just knew that I knew that my heart would not ever be happy until I could connect with my mom in that way, where she knew how much I loved her, like her mother showed Uncle Lee.
Wow. Did you ever get that moment?
I so got that moment, and in spades. And my mom blames me for her affection with her brothers and sisters when she was alive. She's like, oh, Edward, I just tell my brothers and sisters. I'm like, oh, blame it on Eddie. It's his fault. and they're like, why are you hugging me? Why are you telling me you love me? You're freaking me out. I'm uncomfortable. Let's just go back to eating pecan pie.
Wow. And so, well, that's, your mother sounds actually pretty amazing to come from that and to move in and be open to learn. She's quite something.
She is the most remarkable human I have ever met in my entire life. And she's been on the other side now for 5 years. And I'm telling you, she set the tone for me in a way that no other human ever has, or it probably ever will.
Wow. And, I even think back in that time, think about when our moms were growing up, because, we talk about, even stereotypes now. They couldn't even vote.
That's right.
They sometimes they couldn't even vote. They were second-class citizens. Like, I know my mother had no options. The options were always be a teacher, old maid, or a wife, or something minimum wage or something like that. You know what? Let's go back for a second. When you were saying when someone kills someone and people follow them around, it sort of made me feel like that would be the term of somebody who was haunted.
Yes.
Do you ever feel that if you ran into someone and would it be the same if it was like an accident, if it was like a car accident, or probably not, because there would be a different vibe to it. It wasn't intentional. Do you ever feel that when you run into someone?
I'm really lucky, and I bet you can relate to this. When I first started doing readings, and I mean this with love and great respect, I attracted every whiny, sucky, bitchy, moany energy vampire on planet Earth. And 30 years ago, because I thought it was my job to save people.
Right.
And that's not our job. We learn the hard way, right? And so back then, I was around some people that were real shady that would come and get readings, and they would have, quote, attachments.
Right.
In their energy field. And sometimes the attachment could be the energy of another soul popping in, not quite like Sam Wheat in the movie Ghost, But also just popping in is sort of, making them go through the motions until they cross over to the other side. But in where I'm at now in my life and in my spiritual practice and my awareness, and I try to keep that high, fast, and pure, I don't really get any of that. But when I'm watching people on television, and some of these people are beloved by the world, I'm sitting there feeling the contradiction from these people. And I'm like, child, your day is coming. And when it comes, it's going to be fugly. And when I mean fugly, I mean the apocalypse.
Wow.
Yeah, because you can feel when somebody's like, hi, how are you? I'm an evolved spiritual being here. Roll out the red carpet. Thank you very much. I'm going to eat your firstborn child. I'll see you Thursday. But then, but their public persona is, hi, be good to everybody you come in contact with. But there's a giant contradiction there.
Yeah.
And I ain't going to name names because I would like to continue to work in this town.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And, it's very interesting because I also think it's funny that comedians, we're supposed to be the ones that go, look at what a jerk I am. Look at what an asshole I was. Like we're kind of supposed to point it out. I'll never forget this guy that he went on stage and he said, his name's Ian Bagg. He's very funny. And pardon my swearing, folks, but I'm a swear. But he went on stage. He goes, hey, who else here has shit their pants? And which is not, I'm not a bathroom comic, but he and everybody's laughing. And it was in that moment I realized he just took the shame and embarrassment out of everyone that had that happen to them. He just called it, put it out there. And I feel like that's what comedians were kind of supposed to do rather than someone that's holding up this image. Like rarely do you see comedians called on their crap because they're the first ones to do it. Roseanne, once somebody came up to her and said, we found out you were in a mental hospital. And she was like, yeah, what's your problem? And it took all the air out of it because she wasn't phony about it. As much as I'm not a Roseanne fan now, that was pretty good then. That's pretty fascinating. I think, I don't know. I don't want to say, but anyways, I got it. Good point. I got the answer there. I know I was going in circles there. I have been quite an airhead since we've been in quarantine.
Well, and I'll tell you why I think part of that is we're literally in the shift between dimensions. So your head is in the clouds, as it were. Yeah. But it's not because you're not grounded. It's because we are reacclimating to a higher frequency.
That makes so much sense. And thank you for that, Eddie, because I can't focus. And I kept feeling like this is going to be a time you're going to get so much work done. And it just hasn't been.
Yeah. Well, listen, I want to go back to something because it is sticking in my crawl in the best sense of the word about comedians. And I'll also just lump in artists, musicians, creative people, writers, especially writers. Mm-hmm. But comedians can be some of the most tortured people I've ever met.
Yeah.
But so can artists and so can actors and so can musicians. And I feel it's for this reason. Just like you said with this particular comedian, we had to learn to be self-deprecating to survive.
Yeah.
And then we turned it when we saw people giggle or laugh, then we're like, okay, this feels like connection. Mm-hmm. And then that connection goes one or two ways. Ellen DeGeneres is famous for saying this. She's like, my mom was so sad and depressed and my dad left her and she was just so sad. I tripped and fell or whatever. And my mom laughed because I didn't get hurt. She just thought it was funny. And that moment I saw her laugh, and Rosie O'Donnell talks about this too. Their whole objective was to get their mother to laugh. Well, there's two things that happen when you have that connection. When you feel that connection, it goes down one path or the other. There's two paths you choose. You either confuse attention with love, or you connect to the love.
Huh.
And most people, if they're not cognizant of the difference between an ovation and love, then they're in for a bumpy ride.
Wow.
But if they understand the connection between authentic love from the inside out, I am not scared to make fun of myself, especially if it helps you feel better about yourself. Then everything's going to work out even better.
That's a perfect description. And for me, it was my dad. It was to make my dad laugh so he didn't yell. And I think that there's a plus for the comedian. It relieves us. Like, I almost think there's something about putting your shit out there before anybody else can call you on it. But it's so interesting because I also feel like even if you're doing an act or you're an artist and you're bringing laughter to the audience and you're talking about commercials or whatever, the place of pain has to connect with the audience's place of pain. So, and then even if you're not talking about it, it seems like that's where the connection is. Once you connect with that on them, you can go anywhere. That's why, like, sometimes people that have had very, I don't want to say easy lives because I don't even know if there is an easy life. Charmed lives more. They don't make that connection.
And the connection that you're speaking of, I feel like has to be genuine and authentic to the core of your being. And that's what connection is anyway. It is you feel the authenticity, the light, the love, the sincerity in another human being who is brave enough to be in front of those people to have that. We get on stage for other people more than ourselves. And we do it because we want everybody to be okay. We want everybody to feel good. We don't want anybody to not get along.
Right.
And laughter and humor, what you do, honestly and truly, is one of the highest forms of being a master healer on planet Earth. And that's the truth. I'm sure you're aware that there were comedians in Nazi Germany in the concentration camps.
Yes, and that's fascinating. I always want to know about comedians in Iran, Iraq, like now in the Middle East now. But I remember, wasn't that also, that movie Life is Beautiful, he was more performing for his son.
Exactly. And everybody copes with what we're going through right now. Everybody copes with anxiety and stress differently. The second we get anxious or nervous or freaked out, our logical mind goes out the damn window.
Yeah.
And then we default usually to what we're told to think. But very few people vibrate higher, like the character in Life is Beautiful, and like the comedians in the war zones who are making their fellow humans, their fellow brothers and sisters, forget about the carnage around them and go back to their heart. Because a belly laugh, what is the belly? It's your self-esteem and self-confidence. It's fight or flight. But you have to get past the heart with the breath to laugh. And then the breath goes back through the heart again. So it's the heart mind and the gut brain that they're getting you back in touch with, despite what you see and hear with your eyes and ears.
Wow, that's beautiful. That's, it is a funny thing. In this time, comedians, we're really missing our crowds. We're doing little Zoom shows, but we are really missing our people. But all right, hold on one second, folks. We'll be back. We're going to talk about Peru, spiritual places, and hopefully a little feng shui. Psychic medium and buddy of mine, Terry Huberman, is with me today. Terry, you've given me so many great readings and healings, and now you've got everything together in one package. Tell me about that.
I sure do. So this package has energy healings, readings, and coaching.
Coaching, that's the best. And people, they buy the package. You give them coaching once a week?
Yeah, so we meet online once a week, and in between, there's support as well.
And who would this be for?
This is really for folks who are in indecision, needing to get into their intuition because they're blocked or stuck. They need to move forward. And so we explore what the root causes of the problems are.
And helps them get out of their own way.
Yeah, absolutely.
Terrific. And what can they expect from this?
Sure. So moving from anxiousness to confidence, accessing their freedom, joy, and security, and really being in alignment with themselves so they have that clear direction, so they know, aha, this is what I need to do next to reach my goals.
So now there's something that's free so people can talk to you and see if this is for them.
Yeah, absolutely. On my website, terryhuberman.com, there is a page where you can click, and it's the intuitive coaching package. And there is a button there that says schedule a free call. So you go ahead, schedule it. We'll get on a call and you can learn more about this program, and we'll see if this is a good fit for you or not.
See if there's chemistry.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
It's an odd date.
terryhuberman.com, TerrieHuberman. I highly recommend it, folks. So, Eddie, now you are taking, you're planning for 2021 a spiritual tour to Peru. I am so fascinated. Before we even get to that, do you think people have their own spiritual places that speak to them?
100%. Absolutely. Yes.
I always felt that about San Diego, although I love LA. But I always felt like that's my place. Very close. It's nice when your spiritual place is 2 hours away. So what? This is a big thing to put together a tour and everybody go. Tell me about how you picked Peru, why you love there, what's happening. Machu Picchu, which is hard to say but fun to think about. Tell us about the tour.
The Machu Picchu. I did not pick it. It picked me. Mm. I'm like Sophia from the Golden Girls. Picture it. High Point, North Carolina, 1980. Movie theater, abusive boyfriend. And I was watching the movie Resurrection. And there's one scene in the movie toward the end of the movie. The top of the movie, the gentleman, she stops at a gas station. By the way, Resurrection's based on a real life story about a woman who was paralyzed when her car went off PCH and plummeted to the coast in the Pacific coast. And then she goes to the Midwest to heal. But when her father's taking her from her Hollywood lifestyle from Malibu to the Midwest, very super conservative guy, they stop at a gas station in the desert. And the guy's like, hey, what you doing? And then they're just she's connecting to the guy, and he starts talking about Machu Picchu. And as soon as I heard the word, and how old? I was not even 21 years old. My hair stood up on the back of my neck, and then I forgot about it. At the end of the movie, when she leaves her family and she's coming back to California because now she can walk and she's healed her family, drama. Mm-hmm. She stops there. There's a different gas station attendant, and there's like, where's such and such? He's like, he went off to Machu Picchu. They hold up a postcard of Machu Picchu, and it filled the entire movie screen. And I just started weeping. I know I've been there before. I know I've lived there before. And so fast forward to I started collecting things in what Abraham Hicks would call a creation box. And I made the decision, 1998, 99, whatever, I wanted to go to Peru, but I didn't tell a single soul. So I collected all the stuff, Carolyn Mace pictures, because, she was the redhead, and so was Shirley MacLaine in the spiritual movement. Pictures of Machu Picchu, all of these things. I collected them, and once a week I spread them out all over my bed. I'm looking at all of these things that are tied to Machu Picchu. Fast forward to a month later, I get a call, and it's a client who says, hey, have you ever heard of Machu Picchu? And I laughed and said, oh. He said, have you ever heard of Carolyn Mace? I said, well, yeah. And he's like, I have friends who were friends with her, and she's going to Peru in May, and I would like you to go with me. And I'm like, all right, well, okay. Now, this was the end of the year, and May was coming up. And so I was like, okay, well, let me put my money together and let me see. He's like, you're not listening to me. I want to take you to Peru. I want to pay your way.
Wow. Because
I can't imagine going with somebody who's as spiritual as you are, and you can help me along the way when I have questions. I was like, are you serious? I said, well, let me think about it. Fast forward to now we're in Peru, all expenses paid, uneffing believable, 1998 or 99. And we left her group because there was 350 people in it. And we went out on our own, and we worked with 3 separate shamans. All 3 of those shamans said, you have lived here before. This is your heart's homeland. And you will bring other brothers and sisters who are awake back to Peru for the rest of your life. Wow. And last year was my 6th tour. And so I have a heart connection to it like I can't even articulate. It's a knowing. And I've never taken anybody who felt differently.
Wow. So, yeah. And how, like, just tell us a little bit about the tour. Everybody can take a look, but is it a week, a month, or what happens there?
It's a 10-day tour, and we're going to shake it up next year. We might end up moving it to the year after that, by the way, just depending on how Miss Quarantine 2020 goes. Okay.
I know.
And so we usually fly into Lima, Peru. It's 10 days. And then from Lima, we go to Cusco, and then we're in Cusco for a day or 2. Then we go over to the Sacred Valley of the Incas. When you're around Cusco, you get to go see Sexy Woman. The lesbians think that's something different, but it's not. And then we go to the Sacred Valley. We go to Ollantaytambo. We work with shamans. We climb these beautiful mountains in the Andes. And we work with the shamans up in these caves that are portals between worlds. And I'm not even remotely exaggerating this. And then we come down, and then we go on to Aguas Calientes, which is at the base of Machu Picchu. And then it's Machu Picchu. Then it's the mountain above Machu Picchu, Huayna Picchu. And then we're up on the Sun Gate. We're up on the Inca Trail. We're on the train coming and going. It's through the jungle along the Urubamba River. It is life-changing to the core of your being. And then we come back to Cusco. Then we jump on the plane. Then we go back to Limas. Then we go from Limas back to the United States 10 days later.
Now, maybe you can't put this into words, but when it's life-changing, especially the shamans, and I know there are great shamans in LA, but I feel weird always saying an LA shaman. Like, you're talking shaman. Shaman,
born and raised, still speaks Quechua, the original language of the Incas, which was forbidden when the Spaniards came in. If they caught you speaking Quechua, they murdered you, or they murdered your family, or both.
Wow. And when people are healed here, it's I guess you can't describe it because it's probably different for each person.
It is different for each person. You know, some people, their stuff comes up. The thing about Machu Picchu, yes, it's a vortex. And yes, some people say there's a lot of otherworldly dimensional things. Child, listen, the first time I took my first group, we did a midnight ritual on Machu Picchu with a full moon. And while we were in whatever little cave it was on Machu Picchu, working with Shirley MacLaine shamans back in the day, I'm sitting at the entrance to the cave. My group's inside. They're doing the ritual. And I keep hearing these things that sound like the little brass bells and seashells. And I was like, what the heck is that? And I kept seeing this apparition storming back and forth outside of the cave. It was pissed. And then when I stepped outside, I made sure my back was to the cave so that none of my people would be scared. And it wasn't scary. It was just other dimensional. And then I stepped outside, and then each person had their experience. And then I was like, don't stand too close to the ledge. Fast forward to, I see a headless warrior, really pissed. He can feel we're there. I can feel he's there. And then Abelardo, the best guide in Peru. I've never used anybody but Abelardo. And he and Shirley's shamans go up to the top of Machu Picchu to do the offering to Pachamama over the edge of the cliffs. When he went to toss them, something pushed him. And the shaman grabbed him by his shirt collar and pulled him back. And I didn't tell anybody in my group what I experienced. I said, we go back down because it's now 1:30, 2 o'clock in the morning. We're going back down on this rickety bus on this dirt road from the top of Machu Picchu, back down, and everybody's going to their hotels. And just before two of my friends went, I told them the experience, and that was that. The next morning when I came down for breakfast, they ran up to me and said, you have to talk to Abelardo about what happened. And it turns out that the shaman, whatever this thing was, manifested in the shaman's room in the hotel with Abelardo. And it blew the candlelight out. It was, think of it like a giant condor. It was flapping its wings. And the shamans, sent it back to wherever it needed to go. And that was the end of that.
Wow.
And that is the kind of experiences that are available to you there, depending on what, I hate to say the word level because that sounds, asshole-ish.
Judgmental. But yeah, I know what you mean. A lateral level. Yeah.
Yeah. And if you don't want to experience that, you're not going to have that experience. But if your belief system won't allow for that, you're not going to have it anyway.
Right.
But, whoa, it's otherworldly. Now, listen, last time I was there, I was sitting with Abelardo. We're along the Urubamba River. We're in this indoor outside restaurant. It's very beautiful. And I was like, what other groups have you ever had that had like crazy, ridiculous spiritual experiences with the other side like this group has? And he thought about it. He said, in 1999, probably 20 years ago, there was a small group. And I think they came from Los Angeles and blah, blah, blah. And he went into the story and I went, Abelardo, that was my group. And we all started laughing. He's like, oh, yeah, because you guys did healings every day after the thing with people on the massage tables. I was like, yes, that was my group. He said, my guides, because he was supposed to have 25 people in that group, but the guy that was doing the group with me canceled at the last minute. Uh-huh. So there was 11 of us instead of 25. And so Abelardo, he went out into the mountains. He prayed to the Apus, the mountain spirits, and said, should I give this group to somebody else or should I work with them? And he said, my guides told me that I should work with you, that we would all end up being friends for a lifetime.
Wow.
And that's how it's been. And he said, I knew the day I saw people on the healing table and saw what happened with them before and after that you were a unique group of people.
Wow. Oh my God. Now I want to go. Now, do you, and which kind of leads me to another question. And again, I apologize about the noise, folks. Every time it's like whenever I move my podcast, they have a leaf blower, they move it to that day, or I have a helicopter or something. So I think and by the way, everyone, you didn't get a text a while ago. I just didn't silence my phone. That happens about once a podcast. This is two kind of strange questions, but one of them is, do you believe that there is good and evil on the other side? Or do you believe, like, I know I've had this talk with my friend that's a demonologist where he said, like, demons used to be called teachers because they were teaching you something. You were on the wrong path. Do you believe in good and evil, or you just sort of, it's all just lessons?
I believe it is all just lessons. And I also believe that I've seen things that would make me, I agree with your friend who does what he does. They are teaching experiences. They absolutely are. And I believe there's such thing as good and bad and or good and evil, light and dark. And I believe you can't have one without the other. And it's all the more reason to attune your vibrational frequency and your thoughts and your feelings higher and faster and more pure.
Right. And and also, this is a weird segue, but what is your opinion or feeling about what's going on now? Like I'm gonna let you take that. I think my listeners all know mine, but about this change, this quarantine, the astrology, what do you think we're moving into? And any advice for anybody that's maybe freaked out?
That's such a good question. It's a loaded question.
Yeah.
For me, I am not. I'll just answer it. I felt incensed. By the way, I'm scared I'm going to forget to say this. I'm not going to post it on social media because I posted a couple of just loose things like, "Hi, everybody, just a little note. Everybody's entitled to their opinion. Let's respect their opinions." I've never been more attacked in my life.
Oh, I know. I do that all the time. And then I get mad and wonder why I was attacked when I knew it before.
Yeah, same here. And so I would love to, I'm not going to do it. I would love to ask this question of every great card reader out there. What would happen if every great card reader did a 3-card spread just on the truth behind this pandemic?
Ah, interesting.
Wouldn't it be great to see all over the world everybody's 3-card spread? What is the truth behind COVID-19?
I know. That's fascinating, which leads me to more questions, which I don't want to pin you down because my people wouldn't send you hate mail, but I don't know who would listen. You know what I mean? But I know what I go in and out of this same sort of question. Yeah. And, somebody did ask me that once. And I believe in the reading, the first thing that came up is secrets from foreign countries. And that's as far as I got with it because no one else has really asked me that question. I think the people that are coming to me for readings really are asking past COVID or through COVID. Nobody's like, when am I going to get my job back or what? It's very interesting to me. But of course, you get what you send out, but I am just like, let's work through it. So I guess that's why my clients are getting, but that's very interesting. Yeah, maybe we'll talk. But go ahead.
Oh, yeah. Well, but when it first started, I couldn't read anything past the day of COVID. And that went on for a week. And then I reached out to some friends who do what you and I do. And, I think a couple of them reached out and said, "Listen, can you read past today on this?" And I was like, "No, I thought it was just me." And they're like, "No." And then their friends who do also what we do, they all started talking amongst themselves. And they're like, when I said, "I think you guys were asking the wrong question. I think the question is there something bigger going on behind this? Is this a Wizard of Oz thing?" And then that's when the energy started moving. And I am a happy-go-lucky, rainbow, sunshine, unicorn kind of guy. Mm-hmm. And in the last 2 months, I have gone down rabbit holes I did not know existed, but it wasn't on my own volition. It's people I read for. And you and I have done this for years. Yeah. So you and I know people in every walk of life, in front of the camera and behind the camera. Leading corporations and that are in the mailroom of the corporations, right? Mm-hmm. And those are the people who call for readings, and then they don't say anything until they ask the question, and then the information starts coming through. Wait a minute, this is a contradiction. Something's not right here. Nothing makes sense. We're told this, and then this happens. We're told that, then that happens. Something is bad, wrong here. And then they tell me in their line of work, their professional line of work, sometimes for a decade or longer, in these marketplaces that are pulling the strings, where we're being told what to do and think. And then I was like, oh my God, I've been doing research. And then they said, go here, here, here. And I did. And then I had that cognitive dissonance thing where my mind shut down. I could not believe some of the stuff. There's a whole universe, speaking of good and evil, light and dark, good and bad, that goes on that I was never privy to. So is COVID-19 real? Yes, it is. Is the pandemic justifiable? In my opinion, no. Based on no conspiracy theories, but what the people in the places that are pulling the strings have told me.
Fascinating.
So it is so fascinating. And here's what it did do for me. I know clearly my life path is to do what I've been doing. But since this happened, I have never wanted to connect people back to their hearts more in my entire life than now. And here's the number one thing people are saying, and you're already doing it. You're a leading edger here. And that is you have to do your own grassroots research, but you also have to do your own grassroots platform. And you have to find a way to sneak the message in the cracks. And I have a friend that's on the front lines of the darkest of the darkest of the darkest. And he's a journalist there. And he and I had a conversation, and proof, pictures, evidence, photography. I can't even talk about the things he sent me to back up what she says I need to be aware of to protect myself and the people that I love. And he said, Eddie, I'm a warrior. I'm on the front lines. I'm in the gutter. I'm in the underbelly of the beast. And I said, yeah, child, I'm not wired like that. He said, but you are wired like that. You're a spiritual warrior, as you are, Karen. And he said, yes, you don't like confrontation. And yes, you're not about combative stuff. And yes, you don't have to talk about any bad thing that's going on. But get people connected back to their soul, get them back in line with their heart, their feelings, their true self. Because once they breathe into that, then their cognitive dissonance melts away and their heart logic and their gut brain starts to tell them and show them the truth. And so I'm going to start a whole new, we just filmed a pilot yesterday for 5.5 hours and a sizzle reel to help people get connected back to their heart chakras and to continue to heal the world. So the bottom line is, yes, they're shutting down doctors who are telling the truth. Yes, they're banning them on all social media platforms. Yes, they're kicking them off YouTube and Google and all of that stuff. And that is what it is. But when you find another way to say the same message and get people connected during the dawn of the age of Aquarius, as the fifth dimension comes down, the fifth dimension's coming whether we like it or not. And we're going to love it. But you have to be attuned to that frequency. And that's what the heart and the love is about.
Oh my God, Eddie, you're amazing. I don't even know. I kind of speechless after that because it was so perfect. And there's so much I could learn from you and also I hope this girl still listens, but it's like on my page before all of this, I couldn't take the Trump supporters. But now I feel like I just saw someone that dismissed everything as a conspiracy theory, unfriend anyone that says this, and this. And I lost my mind instead of I have to do that thing and pull back because like you just said, the truth is being wiped off the internet. And then people are like, well, who's doing the wiping? And it's like, you know what? And then this very smart woman repeated back to me what the media, what everybody wants us to know, like I was the crazy one to just think outside the box for a minute.
Yep. And you know what I liken it to? Do you remember, you might not be old enough, but do you remember the movie, The Poseidon Adventure? Mm-hmm. With Shelley Winters and Hackman. And that movie is exactly where we're at. The world is turned upside down. The authorities on the Poseidon, the captain, the co-captain, the stewards, the doctor, the nurses, where were they leading the groups of people? And the groups of people were standing there. They only followed the authorities to their grave. And there was a rogue group of people who used their gut and their heart logic. And and what did they keep trying to do? Come with us. Come with us. The ship's upside down. You're going to your grave if you go down. It's up. The propeller's up here. That's where we have to go. No, the captain. We have to do what the captain says. We have to do what the nurse says. We have to do what the doctor says. And they just blindly were following them like so much as like what we see right now. But and there's some people, we know so many wonderfully intelligent, bright, amazing people. And this is where the truth comes up. And I saw her post something from somebody said, I'm sick of these people talking about this in a negative way. Look at this, Dr. Fauci, etc. Mm-hmm. And I didn't go after anybody. I did my damn homework. People, do your homework. Go in there and ask yourself this question 3 times. Put your hand over your solar plexus after you take 3 deep breaths and say, does this feel right to me in my gut? And then put your hand over your heart. Does this information I'm researching feel right in my heart? And then go to your head and say, does this feel right in my head? If you get 2 out of 3, pay attention.
Yeah.
And she posted something like, oh, well, where did you get that information? Did you get it from a little gnome that popped out of the ground, or did a mermaid swim up to you at your little pool in Malibu and give you that information? And then she went off on about 5 things. And I highly respect this person. And the guy says, and I give him credit, he said, as Forrest Gump would say, that's all I have to say about that.
Good for him, because you know what, Eddie, I turned into the same, like the woman that was going, just took all the theories away. I was like, well, I guess I did that to the Trump people. I was like, so it was a little in my own face, but I know exactly what you're saying. It's, all right, there's so much more to come. Eddie, I adore you. It has been way too long since we have had a conversation.
I know.
Do you remember when we ran into each other at that weird movie premiere? And it was like,
oh my God. Yes.
That was so fun to sit with you, though. And then you're in the movie and you were like, I didn't even know I was in this movie. I just came to see it.
I just came to support the guy because I like the content. And then it's like, okay, I'm way fatter on film than I thought I was.
No. You're so handsome. Oh, and you are sunshine. And hang on, after I hang up, I just want to ask you one thing. Now my brain is like on fire. Folks, Eddie Conner, you can find him at eddieconner.com, which EDDIECONNER, which, by the way, were you thrilled to get that? There must be a lot of Eddie Conners out there.
I was the first one to get it, and there's 10 of them fighting me to the death to get it.
Oh, my God. Good for you. And so everybody check out, and you scroll all the way down, get on his newsletter. I'm going to think about Peru. Now that I have this abundance coming to me, I may have to go. And you have all kinds of stuff going on there. Anything, Eddie, just send everybody to your website, which will be in the show notes. Anything else you want to push out there? Not yet?
No, that's it. And I really appreciate the time we got to spend together, because it's light field. And that's what we need more of right now. More light like you.
Yeah. Well, thank you. I said that like, yeah, of course. Yes. And actually, and it's very funny because I'm writing a podcast that I'm doing on my own that I wanted to put before you so that I had something the next week would be more positive. But next week, I'm going to look into some misinformation, folks. So tune in for that. But until then, thank you, Eddie. And everybody, carry Eddie's light with you. He's just wonderful.
Oh, thank you.
All right, everybody. We'll see you next week. Thanks to Mike Flynn at Uno Rising Media. Stay safe, folks. We'll see you next week.